This is superb.
Sure, he changed clothes.
They can always lift it up. There's a
Number. Simplex smile on the third page of your book. 539.
That's the winner.
These people.
Oh, look at her go.
Work out. 931. 3475.
Yeah, the light.
Smile. You know, stand it.
However, tomorrow is going to be the time that tells, because tomorrow is the last day of the legislative session, and we'll see how many of these bills are going to be approved by both houses, or how many of them are going to be dead for another 2 years. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
Yachel Yisrael El Adonai, Yim Adonai HaChesed. It came out very well. I also want to thank Don Goop for his...
You know, that would be a real good thing for you. You've got such a heritage, people don't realize how good it is.
That's going to turn. Mark.
Funk is a 5-year-old California firm which revealed more than clothes today at the fall fashion market at Dallas's Apparel Mart. Funky designers describe their apparel as daring and say without hesitation that the collection focuses on the approachable kind of look that has a woman looking like a woman again, or the other woman again. The collection is appropriately called the Mistress Collection. But if that's a little too far out for you, you'll be happy to know that most of the new fall fashion designers weren't so skimpy with the fabrics. A Kansas City firm called Gay Gibson says that the new trend has the man again wearing the pants in the family. They say dresses are definitely back. And if you need extra cover, wear a jacket. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is June Gray at Dallas's Apparel Mart.
And they're getting bigger every year, too.
All the way around.
I go along with, because I like being in one. Well,
Imagine the life.
I'm not really for.
Pageant.
Well, at the time, I'm not real sure, but I'd like to sing whatsoever. I've got a lot of things I have to do. You've got a friend, my same talent from the Miss Arlington pageant. I've done some modeling professionally for the past 3 years in stores and for accessories and things like this, and as a sideline.
The Senate and House conferees have reached basic agreement on an ethics bill, and it is a strong bill similar to the one already passed by the House of Representatives and then weakened down by the Senate. The ethics conferees is just one group of men that have been meeting today. There have been conference committees meeting all over the Capitol building, but for the first time that anyone can remember in a long time at least, neither house has had to have a formal meeting on this Sunday, the next to the last day of this legislative session. Agreement has been reached on many other major measures of legislation, including lobby control, campaign contribution and expense control, the education bill. Also, agreement seems near on the death penalty and other measures that have been worked on by these conference committees.
Do you know if you're the first black contestant in Miss Texas or not?
Well, I was the first Miss Black Arlington, and so I believe, I'm not real sure if I was the only one that was black in the Miss Texas pageant, but I think so.
Safety belt now.
Jerry Reynolds, Dean, how are you? Good, good, let's see that. Good. Our house was born in May of 1970 when Steve Larson of Urban Ministries and some friends of his decided to do something about the fact that Fort Worth had no place for people to go and crash when they'd had a bad experience on drugs. The drug thing was pretty bad in those days, due in no small part, they believe, to the news media. The news guys, they say, focused too clearly on things. and a lot of people did hallucinogenics because they thought everyone else was doing them. Dean Reynolds is the only paid staff person at our house. He makes $15 a week working afternoons and holidays.
We thought we had drug problems, and what we found out, in fact, was that we have people problems. All right, as one comes in the front door, you notice on the left, there's a box with a sign on it. It's an old mailbox, kind of a stovepipe deal on the side of it. And anybody that's carrying a drug of any kind, we ask them to deposit it in the box. This is like a safety zone. They may be brought into here, into the music room, where we have music, and you can sit down and talk about whatever it is that's bothering you. If it's a heavy drug problem, say an LSD trip. Also, we have another room that is, we're trying to work up into a library with books and so forth, things like that. There's art classes that we're trying to provide with crafts and different things. We have a girl that is an artist. In fact, we have several artists that work here.
We can get in touch with Youth Services Bureau or John Peter Smith, or in case of suicide or something, we can get them in to see a doctor very easily without a bunch of waiting in line situation.
They say the hallucinogenic problem is about gone in Fort Worth. The trouble today comes from heroin, uppers, and downers, but mostly just from loneliness. That's why our house is there. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Her name is Sue Ann Sandusky of Anchorage, Alaska. She's a senior at Texas Christian University and a journalism history major. She plays the baritone in the university band, is a member of the Dean's Honor List, and reports for the student newspaper, the Daily Skiff. But one of the honors Sue Ann is most proud of is being a member of the All-American First Team of Target Shooters, named by the National Rifle Association. It's an honor reserved for the top 10 collegiate shooters in the nation. She has also won the State Rifle Association Championship and is thought to be the only collegiate competitor using international equipment. TCU rifle coach George Beck said the lighter jacket and equipment usually causes a drop in scoring, but it hasn't for Sue Ann. Miss Sandusky began shooting only 3 years ago, a rather late start compared to her competition, and yet she has managed to set several records.
I believe I've set 6 different records. One was a team record, a two-man team record that James Hampton and I, another TCU rifle shooter, produced last March. But only 3 of these records are still current. One of them is an air rifle record that I fired last summer, and
that was in the
Olympic trials. Yeah, and a perfect kneeling score that I fired, and it's a record, and it can't be broken. It can only be tied.
Sue Ann is the first co-ed in the history of TCU to earn the title of All-American. She says women are not placed at a disadvantage in competition. If anything, they have an edge.
A woman has a choice of either entering the women's division in a competition or in the open division.
So you compete in both then?
No, you can't compete in both. You have to decide whether, if you go to a tournament, you have to decide, am I shooting as a woman today or am I shooting in the open division? Many people have no conception of what goes on, and they relate it to going out in the backyard and shooting at a tin can or something of that
How difficult
level.
is it?
Rifle shooting? Well, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever tried to do.
Sue Ann practices an average of 2 to 3 hours a day. She says she doesn't know exactly what she will do with her rifle skills, but she feels she will be a better person for it all. Her main goal now is to make the U.S. team for the World Shooting Championship matches to be held next year. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
The situation is this. For a year now, the Dallas Community Action Agency and the Catholic Diocese of Dallas have had a month-to-month lease agreement with the understanding that since the property was up for sale, the lease could be canceled with a 60-day notice if the diocese could find a buyer and sell the property. Well, they found one, and the property has been sold. The Oak Cliff Neighborhood Center has been in this former Catholic school rent-free since 1969. John Brown, administrative assistant to the executive director, says the DCA is negotiating with the new owner and hope that they can come to some agreement to stay beyond the July 23rd deadline. But if they have to move, They want to relocate as near as possible to the present site, which may not be easy. There are a few small businesses in the area, plus some vacant property and a 250-unit housing project, and that's all. The options then would be to locate the Head Start program and the housing project and the other services like the manpower and job counseling and referral services in another facility. That would be decentralizing the services usually offered in one site. But decentralization is nothing new to DCA. When the South Dallas Community Center was closed because the property was sold a few weeks ago, the services there were decentralized. It fractured a comprehensive program, but it didn't kill it, and it won't kill the one in Oak Cliff. This is Rene Castilla reporting for Channel 8 News on the Move.
The Methodist Church, like most others, has been a reflection of society. Its leadership has been male, middle-aged, and white. But the spiritual leader for North Texas Methodists would like to change all that. Bishop W. McFerrin Stowe called for more integration. He outlined his goals in the State of the Church address this morning. And these goals include more than just integration of blacks and whites. Bishop Stowe also wants more women ministers and a greater role in church affairs by young people. And he feels Methodists are ready now to accept these changes.
It takes time for us to wake up to many of the realizations of life. And we have just, since World War II, really begun to realize the humanity of persons who have different races, of persons who are young, of women, and of others. So we are coming to more maturity, I think, as a society and as a church.
The Methodist Church in North Texas still has a long way to go, however, before Bishop Stowe's dreams of integration become a reality. There are nearly 300 churches in this conference. Only about 3 or 4 of them are truly integrated. And of the ministers of these churches, only about a half dozen are women. But this is still more than ever before, so at least Bishop Stowe has a foundation on which to build. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
For example, in the case of liquor, the general public considers liquor as being less than desirable, so we lay on heavy taxes on liquor and let those nasty sinners pay. And then in the areas of church support or nonprofit organizations, things of this nature, where we give tax breaks so that we can encourage that type of activity.
So you're saying that in a sense we might put the person with the third car in the role of being a nasty sinner and make him pay.
Well, either the third car operator or a person who wants to operate a car with one individual only in it with a large horsepower engine. We want to tend to encourage transportation which is efficient.
Ray for his cooperation in preparing this program.
(1971), and all American men and women of all races.
Thank you.
Especially the mayor and Mr. Stewart and everyone. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's real nice, and we appreciate it.
The sight of amber waves of grain nodding in the breeze has long inspired poets, historians, and agricultural agents to put forth glowing descriptive phrases. A stand of wheat amid the well-manicured lawns of Royal Lane is provoking a bit of comment to mathematics teacher Jack Holland these days, too.
We've had some complaints, but most of them have been very supportive, Judy.
What gave you the idea to plant a stand of wheat in your front yard?
Well, actually, I first got the idea when I read an article in Organic Gardening and Farming magazine. And also I was checking into the trouble and the cost of putting in a front lawn here. And that was a bit discouraging, too. And I wanted to do something productive with the land. And we like to make bread out of whole wheat flour. And so I put those things together and came up with this idea.
Well, now it's about harvest time. How do you harvest, and then what do you do with it?
Well, we'll harvest it by hand. We have a number of friends coming out today to help us with it. and we'll shock it and let it dry a few days, and then thresh it out by hand. And we hope to make bread out of it. I have a hand grinder, so we make our own flour.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. In this high-priced, mechanized world, it's not often that the fruits of one's labor is so satisfying or so delicious. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna.
Okay, now check your Okay. Yep. I want to move a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, same place. Check the pressure. Hang on the phone. That's a little quick, wasn't it? Okay. Same thing. Is that right?
Well, we have to do all leases on a fiscal year basis, so that be here beyond January 31st anything. But they'll still be offered, and
next morning, it did bother me. Consequently, the very next morning, I called them both.
those things which are happening to other individuals. The time has come of transforming lives and making new. Hang around with our hands in our pockets and get on with the business of being the church. First, and I have divided this into 3 points. Have met.
Who do I know from Breckenridge? Let's see, is Pam Pitzer? There's some Pitzers in Breckenridge. Yeah, she was a student of mine.
All of a sudden I start to work. More badges. Life is off. Yes, Tiger. You're on TV now. It's a little silent. You got the knife? Got his leg off. That's what I feel. Just tie it up now, Brett. Wait a minute. I'm trying to catch up with you. Well, wait till I hear about this, the old kibbutz over there. They'll be signing. Ready, aim, fire! Aim, fire! Aim, fire! Get it.
With a monument in the state cemetery, which they will pay for. And the resolution simply gives our agreement that a memorial be placed in the state cemetery and allows the Board of Control, who are in charge of the state cemetery, to assist in being sure that they approve of the arrangements to be made by the family.
Chair lays out Senate concurrent resolution 94. The clerk will read the resolution.
SCR 94 by hearing.
Chair recognizes Mr. Kubiak to explain the resolution.
Mr.
Questions on the adoption of the resolution. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. Chair recognizes Mr. Bigham for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker, members, the conferees on House Bill 2 intend to meet at 12 o'clock in room 301.
SCR 96 by hearing.
Directed by the Senate.
Questions on the adoption of Chair recognizes Ms. Weddington to explain the resolution.
Senator Charles Herring, we've had a
Texas legislature has settled 2 of 6 remaining major issues. One is a bill reinstating the death penalty. It provides that death or life in prison will be the penalty for murder of police and firemen and prison guards, murder for hire, or murder in the course of robbing, raping, kidnapping, or escaping from prison. For death to be the sentence, the jury would have to affirm 3 questions which help show the killing was deliberate, unreasonable, and the defendant is a threat to society. The other is the final education plan, which helps all districts with more maintenance and supply money and more transportation funds. Poorer districts would get more than others. Still in the mill is a bill which rewrites the narcotics and drug laws and reforms marijuana penalties. Also, the reform package. Speaker Price Daniel Jr. started the session and pushed for 5 months on reform bills. He believes those remaining to be passed, ethics, campaign funds control, and lobby control, will pass tonight, and with the exception of a crippled lobby control bill, Daniel is pleased.
But all in all, I think it's been a good session, and we've accomplished a lot in the area of opening up our state government to the people of this state and to giving the people the information, knowledge of what their public officials are doing that the people are entitled to in order to hold their public officials accountable at the polls. And so I would mark it down as a successful session in this regard.
One thing stands out about the closing days of this legislative session, and that's the peacefulness. The leadership of the legislature has been able to keep things moving along all session long and apparently able to avoid that usual last-minute crush of legislation when people are really not aware of what all is being done. At least it's that way so far. There are 6 hours left, and we'll see how it comes out in the end. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
When buses operate in the order of over 60 miles an hour, 60 to 70 miles an hour, the aerodynamic drag is a large portion of the total power required by the propulsion system.
Is the proper thing to do then to slow them down or to change the way they're shaped? Or?
Well, I think within the state-of-the-art of aerodynamics, we can improve the aerodynamic drag of these devices and reduce the power simply by ordinary changes, which both buses and trucks can live with.
Would that make a pointed bus going down the road then?
No, not necessarily pointed. There are other devices. People are sometimes familiar with this device you put on station wagons in the back to keep dust from coming on the back window, where just miscellaneous little devices like that which can significantly reduce the drag of a large boxy-type structure.
It is with a great deal of pleasure that I introduce to you the ranking former prisoner of war from the state of Texas, from Plano, Texas, Colonel Samuel Robert Johnson.
Maybe you all watched the television broadcast of the President's dinner for our PWs. Bob Lilly and I were there. And when President Nixon introduced Irving Berlin, whom you very seldom see, and he began to sing God Bless America, we began to wonder whether we were really strong men or not, for each and every one of us were crying at that moment. And I believe those were tears of pride, of joy at being back, and happiness at being able to be an American citizen.